This is HOA clapback. The audit log was louder than her yelling. Angela Mercer stood on my front porch, jabbing her finger at the doorbell camera like it was a confession. "You do not need to understand it, you need to comply," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Behind her, the portable thermal printer in her left hand whirred, spitting out another violation notice before I even understood what the first one was for. I had filed a polite dispute about a garbage fee the day before. That was it. One email. Now she was here, treating my denial as an admission, and the paper in her hand already had my unit number printed at the top. I work as a warehouse shift lead in Seattle, Washington. Canyon Trails Community Association is a gated community with a guard shack and cameras at every turn. The kind of place where rules are religion and Angela Mercer is the high priest. She is the board vice president, and she wears it like armor. That morning, she wore a cheap plastic badge clipped to her black trench coat, and she tapped it every time she said the word policy. The badge was fake, I am sure of it, but it worked. She set a bright orange cone down on my porch like she owned the space, blocking my door, and said she was conducting an official inspection. I asked to see the notice. She printed one on the spot. The notice said I had violated storage policy. I do not have porch storage. I have a doormat. Angela ignored that. She said my questions were harassment, so she could ignore facts. That was her line. She used it twice in the first minute. I tried to explain that I had not harassed anyone, I had asked for a breakdown of the fee. She cut me off. "This is not a debate," she said. She said it again 10 seconds later when I started to respond. Her voice did not waver. She did not blink. She just kept talking, layering new accusations on top of the old ones, and every time I opened my mouth, she tapped that plastic badge and said compliance was mandatory. I am on probation at a new job. I cannot miss work for HOA hearings and disruptions. I told her that. She smiled. She said a hearing was optional, but compliance was not, and if I refused, she would suspend my access fob today. She pulled out her phone and showed me the resident portal, already logged in under her admin account. "One tap," she said. "One tap and you are locked out." I asked if that was legal. She said it was policy, and policy did not require my agreement. Then she turned and walked back to her car, leaving the cone on my porch and the notice stuck to my door with a red stamp she slammed like it was a verdict. I pulled the notice off the door. The red stamp said violation confirmed in block letters. There was no signature, no date, no explanation of what I had violated, just a unit number and a deadline. I had 72 hours to comply or face escalating daily fines. I took a photo of it and sent it to the management office email. No reply. I called. The person who answered said Angela handled enforcement directly and I should contact her. I said I just tried. They said to try again. I hung up and stared at the cone still sitting on my porch. It felt like a marker, like she was claiming territory. The next day, my access fob stopped working. I pulled up to the gate after my shift, scanned the fob, and the arm stayed down. I scanned again. Nothing. The guard shack was 50 feet away, and through the window I could see Angela sitting inside with the guard, watching. She was smiling. I got out of my car and walked over. The guard would not look at me. Angela leaned back in her chair and said my access had been suspended pending compliance review. I asked what compliance review meant. She said I would know when I complied. I asked how I was supposed to get into my own home. She said that was my problem, not hers, and if I parked outside the gate, I would be towed for blocking the service lane. I called the management office from the parking lot outside the gate. This time, I got a different person. They said access suspension required board approval, and they had no record of it. I asked if they could unlock my fob remotely. They said they would have to check with Angela first. I said Angela was the one who locked it. They said they still had to check. I asked if I could get a temporary code. They said codes required board approval. I asked how long that took. They said it depended on Angela. I hung up and sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what to do. A delivery truck pulled up behind me. The driver honked. I moved. I parked 2 blocks away and walked back. Angela was gone from the guard shack. The guard let me in on foot. No questions, no scan. I asked why my fob did not work. He shrugged and said the system was glitchy. I asked if Angela had told him to block me. He looked away and said he just followed the access list. I asked to see the list. He said he could not share resident data. I walked home, unlocked my door, and found another notice stuck to it. This one said I had been observed bypassing gate security, and my access suspension was now extended indefinitely. The paper was still warm from the printer. I called my brother that night. He's a paralegal. He said I needed to document everything and start a paper trail immediately. He said HOA disputes get ugly fast, and if Angela was already locking me out, she was not going to stop. He told me to file a formal complaint with the board in writing, request all my account records, and start recording every interaction. I asked if that was legal. He said it was legal as long as I stayed on my own property or in public spaces. I asked what public spaces meant. He said mailbox clusters, parking lots, sidewalks, anywhere other residents had access. I wrote it all down. The next morning, I filed a written complaint with the HOA board via certified mail. I listed the access suspension, the baseless fine, and Angela's refusal to provide documentation. I requested a full account history and a copy of the enforcement policy she kept citing. I also requested a hearing. I sent a copy to the management office and kept a copy for myself in a manila folder that was already bulging with papers. My brother said bulk was good. He said the folder itself was evidence of how much I was doing to comply. I liked that. I started carrying it everywhere. 3 days later, I got a reply. It was not from the board. It was from Angela. She said my complaint had been reviewed and dismissed as frivolous. She said my request for records was denied because I was in violation of community standards. She said the hearing request was unnecessary because I had already been notified of the violations and the penalties. She said if I continued to file disputes, she would treat them as harassment and escalate enforcement. At the bottom of the email, she included a new fine. $250 for improper gate access. I had walked through on foot. That was the violation. I replied and asked for clarification. She did not respond. I called the management office again. They said Angela was handling my account directly, and they could not override her decisions without board approval. I asked when the board met. They said the next meeting was in 6 weeks. I asked if I could attend. They said I could submit a request to be added to the agenda, but approval was at the board's discretion. I asked what that meant. They said it meant Angela decided. I was trapped. That weekend, a package I ordered arrived. I got the delivery notification on my phone while I was at work. Delivered to front porch, the message said, "Photo attached." I clicked the photo. The package was there, sitting on my mat, visible and intact. I saved the photo and kept working. When I got home that night, the package was gone. I checked the porch, the sides of the unit, the bushes. Nothing. I called the delivery company. They said the photo confirmed delivery and they could not issue a refund without a police report. I called the police. They said it was a civil matter, and I should file a report online. I filed the report. Case number assigned. No follow-up expected. The next morning, Angela was waiting at the mailbox cluster when I went to check my mail. She was holding a clipboard and tapping her cheap plastic badge. She said she needed to talk to me about a theft report. I asked what theft report. She said a neighbor had reported missing items and my porch camera had been mentioned. I said I did not have a porch camera. She said the doorbell camera counted. I said the doorbell camera was mine, and it recorded my porch, not the neighbor's. She said that did not matter. She said the footage was evidence, and she needed to review it immediately. I said no. She said refusal to cooperate was a violation. I said I did not have to cooperate with an HOA investigation into a theft I did not commit. She said I decided what evidence is allowed. She said it again. I decide what evidence is allowed. She was loud. People were grabbing their mail, and they all stopped. She pointed at me and said I was refusing to cooperate with a community safety investigation. She said my package had been reported stolen, but my doorbell footage would prove whether I was involved. I said my package was stolen from my porch. She said that was convenient. She said the footage would show who took it, and if I refused to share it, she would assume I was hiding something. One of the neighbors, an older man I had seen maybe twice, said this was unhinged. Angela ignored him. She said she was filing a formal complaint on behalf of the association, and I would be billed for investigative costs. I walked away. She followed me for 20 feet, still talking, still listing violations. I did not turn around. When I got back to my unit, I reviewed my doorbell footage. The package was delivered at 2:43 in the afternoon. At 3:15, someone walked up to my porch. The angle was tight, but I could see a black trench coat and a blonde ponytail. The person bent down, picked up the package, and walked away. The timestamp was clear. I downloaded the clip and saved 3 copies. One on my phone, one on my laptop, one on a thumb drive I kept in my work bag. Then I called my brother. He said I had her. He said the footage was proof, but I needed to be careful about how I used it. He said if I accused Angela directly without corroboration, she would spin it as retaliation and bury me in procedure. He said I needed more. I needed a pattern. I needed other people who had lost things. I needed vendor records, access logs, anything that showed she had opportunity and motive. He said the motive was easy. She was stealing to resell or to cover operational gaps in the HOA budget. He said the opportunity was the access she had as vice president. He said I needed to find the other victims. I started asking around. I kept it casual. I ran into a neighbor at the gym and mentioned my package had gone missing. He said his wife had lost a makeup order 2 months ago. Another neighbor said she had reported missing petty cash from the clubhouse, but Angela told her it was a bookkeeping error and closed the case. A third neighbor said his car had been rifled through in the covered parking. Nothing valuable taken, just registration papers and a phone charger. He said he reported it to Angela, and she told him it was not an HOA issue. I wrote it all down. I did not tell anyone what I was doing. I just listened. 2 weeks later, I got another notice. This one said I was being fined for violating the parking policy. I did not have a parking violation. I checked my car. No sticker, no warning, no citation. I called the management office. They said Angela had flagged my vehicle for improper storage. I asked what improper storage meant. They said items visible through the windows. I asked what items. They said they did not have specifics. I would need to ask Angela. I said I was not calling Angela. They said that was my choice, but the fine stood. I went out to my car and took photos of the interior. Nothing. A gym bag on the back seat. a work jacket, a reusable water bottle. I sent the photos to the management office and asked them to forward them to Angela. They said they would. An hour later, Angela replied directly. She said the photos did not prove anything because I could have removed the items before taking them. She said the fine was valid and I had 10 days to pay or face additional penalties. I asked what additional penalties meant. She said a lien on my unit. I asked if she was serious. She did not reply. My next delivery arrived on a Saturday. I was home. I heard the truck pull up and I went outside immediately. The driver handed me the package and I signed for it on his scanner. I carried it inside and set it on my kitchen counter. 10 minutes later, Angela knocked on my door. She said she needed to inspect my garage for storage violations. I said I did not have a garage, I had a covered parking spot. She said fine, covered parking spot, same rule. I asked to see the rule. She pulled out a laminated policy sheet and waved it at me. I asked to read it. She said I did not need to read it, I needed to comply. I said no. She said refusal was a violation and she was filing an emergency access request with the board. I asked what that meant. She said it meant she could enter my parking spot in my unit if I refused to cooperate. I told her that was not legal. She said it was policy. I closed the door. She knocked again. I did not answer. She printed a notice and stuck it to my door. I heard the stamp slam. When she left, I pulled the notice off and read it. Emergency inspection authorized. Unit subject to entry within 24 hours. Refusal to cooperate will result in immediate access suspension and escalating fines. I took a photo of the notice and texted it to my brother. He called me back in under a minute. He said that was not legal. She could not authorize entry without a court order or a legitimate emergency, and if she tried, I should call the police immediately. He said I also needed to file a restraining order request if she kept showing up. I said I did not want to escalate. He said she already escalated. He said I was playing defense and I needed to go on offense. I spent that night digging through the HOA portal. I logged in with my resident account and clicked through every section. Most of it was locked. Board minutes were restricted. Financial records were restricted. Vendor contracts were restricted. The only thing I could see was my own account ledger, and it was a mess. Fees I had paid were listed as unpaid. Fees I had never heard of were listed as overdue. There was a charge for landscaping I did not request. A charge for snow removal in a year we had no snow. A charge for legal fees with no description. I downloaded the ledger and saved it. Then I clicked on the activity log. It showed the last person to edit my account was Angela. The timestamp was 2 days ago. I took a screenshot. Then I noticed something. The activity log showed edits to other accounts too. I clicked on a few. Same pattern. Angela had edited at least a dozen accounts in the past month, all with similar charges. Landscaping, snow removal, legal fees. I clicked back to my own ledger and compared the dates. The charges appeared after I filed my first complaint. I took more screenshots. I saved everything. The next morning I printed everything and added it to my folder. The folder was getting thick. I liked that. I went to the management office in person. I asked to speak to someone about account discrepancies. The receptionist said Angela handled all account issues. I said I wanted to speak to someone else. She said there was no one else available. I asked for the property manager. She said the property manager only handled maintenance requests. I said this was a billing issue. She said billing was enforcement, and enforcement was Angela. I asked if I could leave a formal complaint. She said I could email it. I said I wanted to file it in person. She handed me a blank form. I filled it out, listed every discrepancy, attached copies of my screenshots, and handed it back. She stamped it received and said someone would follow up within 10 business days. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA revenge content. I waited. 10 business days passed. No reply. I called. The receptionist said my complaint was under review. I asked who was reviewing it. She said the board. I asked if Angela was on the board. She said yes. I hung up. That afternoon, I got a call from a tow company. The driver said he had an authorization to tow my vehicle from Canyon Trails Community Association for unpaid fines. I said I did not have unpaid fines. He said he had paperwork showing 3 months of violations. I asked who authorized it. He said Angela Mercer. I asked to see the paperwork. He said he was required to hook first and sort it out later. I said that was not legal. He said it was policy. I said I was coming down to the parking lot right now. He said he would wait, but if I did not resolve it in 5 minutes, he was hooking. I ran. When I got to the covered parking, the tow truck was backed up to my car, and the driver was attaching the chains. Angela was standing 10 feet away, holding a clipboard and watching. I told the driver to stop. He said he had authorization. I said the authorization was fraudulent. He said that was between me and the HOA. I pulled out my phone and called the police. Angela laughed. She said the police would not come for a civil dispute. I said towing without proper notice was theft. The driver stopped. He looked at Angela. She said the notice had been provided. I said, "Show me." She pulled a piece of paper from her clipboard and handed it to the driver. He looked at it and handed it to me. It was a violation notice dated 3 months ago. I had never seen it. I took a photo of it. The driver looked uncomfortable. He said he needed to see proof of residency and proof the fines were disputed. I pulled out my folder. I showed him my lease, my account ledger, my complaint receipt. He looked at Angela. She said the complaint was not relevant. He said he was not hooking without clearer authorization. She said she would call his supervisor. He said go ahead. She did. The supervisor did not pick up. Angela tried twice. The driver unhooked my car and said he was leaving. He told me to file a police report and get a case number, and if the HOA came back, he would need documentation. I thanked him. Angela said this was not over. She said I was in violation of the towing policy, and the fine was now doubled. She said if I did not pay within 48 hours, she would authorize another tow, and I would not get a warning. I asked what towing policy. She said it was in the handbook. I asked to see the handbook. She said it was online. I said, "Show me." She walked away. That night, I filed a police report. I listed the fraudulent towing authorization, the falsified notice, and the ongoing harassment. The officer who took the report said it sounded like a civil issue, but he would file it anyway. He gave me a case number. I added it to my folder. Then I went online and searched for the HOA handbook Angela kept citing. It did not exist. The HOA website had a resources page, but all the links were broken. I took screenshots of the broken links and added them to my folder. 2 days later, my access fob stopped working again. This time, I did not bother going to the guard shack. I parked outside, walked in on foot, and went straight to my unit. Another notice was stuck to my door. Unauthorized pedestrian access. Fine of $100. I pulled it off, photographed it, and added it to my folder. The folder was almost too thick to close. I liked that even more. I needed help. I could not keep fighting this alone. I called a tenant rights attorney my brother recommended. She listened to my summary, and said it sounded like systematic harassment and possible embezzlement. She said the screenshots of Angela editing accounts were significant, and if I could prove a pattern of theft, I might have a case for fraud. She said her retainer was $1,500. I did not have $1,500. She said I could file a complaint with the state HOA oversight board, but it would take months, and Angela would keep escalating in the meantime. She said my best bet was to gather more evidence and force a confrontation that other people witnessed. She said public exposure was faster than legal process. I thanked her and hung up. I started following Angela, not physically. I started watching the HOA activity logs. Every time she edited an account, I took a screenshot. Every time a new fee appeared, I documented it. I also started checking the clubhouse. I went during off hours and looked for signs of missing inventory. The supply closet was half empty. The petty cash box was gone entirely. I took photos. I did not touch anything. I just documented. 3 days later, another package arrived. I was not home. I got the notification at work, delivered to front porch, photo attached. I clicked the photo. The package was there. I called my neighbor, the older man from the mailbox cluster, and asked if he could grab it for me. He said sure. When I got home, he handed it to me and said Angela had been on my porch 20 minutes after delivery. He said he saw her through his window. He said she bent down like she was going to take it, but she saw him watching and walked away. I asked if he would be willing to sign a statement. He said yes. I typed it up that night, and he signed it. I added it to my folder. The folder was now so thick I had to use a rubber band to keep it closed. I carried it everywhere. It became a prop. People noticed it. At the mailbox cluster, a neighbor asked what I was documenting. I said HOA violations. She said good, someone needed to. Another neighbor said Angela had fined him twice for the same violation and refused to provide receipts. I told him to document everything and keep copies. He said he would. Word was spreading. The next board meeting was 2 weeks away. I submitted a formal request to be added to the agenda. I listed my complaints, attached my evidence summary, and sent it certified mail. 3 days later, I got a reply. My request was denied. The reason given was that my complaints were under review, and adding them to the agenda would be premature. The email was signed by Angela. I replied and asked who else was on the board. No response. I called the management office. They gave me 3 names. I looked them up. 2 of them were renters who had moved out months ago. The third was Angela's sister. I took screenshots of the property records and added them to my folder. I was out of options. I needed a public confrontation, and I needed witnesses. I decided to go to the next board meeting anyway, even though I was not on the agenda. The meeting was held in the clubhouse at 7 on a Tuesday. I showed up at 6:45 with my folder. The door was locked. I knocked. No answer. I checked the HOA website. The meeting notice said 7 p.m., clubhouse main room. I knocked again. A woman I had never seen before opened the door. She said the meeting was canceled. I asked why. She said the board did not have quorum. I asked who she was. She said she worked for the management company. I asked where Angela was. She said Angela was not required to attend if there was no quorum. I asked how there could be no quorum if Angela was vice president. She said the other board members did not show up. I asked for their names. She closed the door. I stood outside for 10 minutes, just processing. Then I saw Angela's car pull into the parking lot. She got out, saw me, and walked over. She said the meeting was canceled and I needed to leave. I said the notice said 7 p.m. She said plans changed. I said I was not leaving until I spoke to someone from the board. She said I was trespassing. I said I was a resident and the clubhouse was common space. She pulled out her phone and called someone. She said she had a trespasser refusing to leave and she needed security. I stood there. 5 minutes later, a private security guard showed up. Angela pointed at me and said I was violating access policy. The guard asked for my ID. I showed him my license and my resident fob. He looked at Angela. She said the fob was suspended. I said it was suspended without cause. The guard said he could not remove me without proof I was not a resident. Angela said she had proof. I was in violation of multiple policies. The guard said he needed documentation. She did not have documentation. She had her clipboard and her printer. The guard said he was leaving. Angela said she would file a complaint. He said that was her right. He left. Angela turned to me. She said I was making this worse for myself. She said she was filing a formal trespass complaint and I would be banned from all common areas. I said go ahead. She said I would regret it. I said I already regretted moving here, but I was not leaving until I got answers. She said I was not entitled to answers. I said I was entitled to documentation of every fine, every charge, and every policy she claimed I violated. She said she had provided documentation. I said she had provided notices with no explanation and no appeal process. She said the appeal process was the board meeting, and I was not on the agenda. I said I had requested to be on the agenda and she denied it. She said the board denied it. I said the board did not exist. She went quiet. I pulled out my phone and showed her the property records. I said 2 of the board members had moved out, and the 3rd was her sister. I said that was not a board, that was a scam. She said I was harassing her and she was calling the police. She did. The police showed up 15 minutes later. A deputy took statements from both of us. Angela said I was trespassing and harassing her. I said I was a resident trying to attend a publicly noticed board meeting, and she had canceled it without notice to avoid accountability. I showed the deputy my folder. I showed him the screenshots of her editing accounts. I showed him the witness statement from my neighbor. I showed him the fraudulent towing authorization. The deputy took notes. He said it sounded like a civil dispute and he could not take action without a court order, but he was filing an incident report and giving both of us case numbers. He told Angela she could not ban me from common areas without board approval, and he told me I could not harass her or interfere with her duties. He said if this continued, one of us needed to file for a restraining order. Angela said she would. I said I would too. The deputy left. I went home. I sat at my kitchen table and laid out everything I had. The screenshots, the witness statements, the fraudulent notices, the property records, the activity logs, the police case numbers. It was a mountain of paper, but it was not enough. I needed something that tied it all together. I needed proof that Angela had stolen, not just proof that she was harassing me. I needed the smoking gun. I went back to the doorbell footage. I watched the clip of Angela taking my package frame by frame. I zoomed in. I could see the package clearly. I could see her face partially. I could see the timestamp. But I needed more. I needed to show she did this to other people. I needed a pattern. I called the neighbor who lost the makeup order. I asked if she had doorbell footage. She said no. I called the neighbor whose car was rifled. He said he did not have a camera. I was stuck. Then I remembered the clubhouse. It had cameras. I went back the next morning during business hours. I walked in and asked the receptionist if I could request security footage. She said footage requests required board approval. I said I was filing a formal request under state HOA transparency laws. She said she would forward it. I said I wanted confirmation. She printed a receipt and handed it to me. I added it to my folder. 2 days later, I got a reply. The request was denied. The reason given was that the footage was part of an ongoing investigation and could not be released. The email was signed by Angela. I called my brother again. He said the denial might be illegal, depending on state law, but fighting it would take months. He said I needed a different angle. He said if Angela was embezzling, there would be vendor invoices that did not match the work performed. He said I should request vendor records. I filed another formal request. This time, I asked for all vendor invoices for the past 6 months. The reply came the next day. Denied. Reason: confidential business records. Signed by Angela. I was running out of moves. The next delivery was supposed to arrive the following afternoon. I decided to use it as bait. I set up my phone on a tripod inside my unit, angled at the door, recording continuously. I also borrowed a small flashlight from work and placed it on the porch railing, angled at the doorbell camera lens for extra lighting and as a marker in the frame. Then I waited. The package arrived at 2:30. I watched the delivery truck pull up on my phone screen. The driver dropped the package and left. I kept recording. At 2:50, Angela walked up. She looked around. She bent down. She picked up the package. Then she saw the flashlight. She looked directly at the doorbell camera. She pointed at it. She said something I could not hear. Then she walked away with the package. I had it. I had her on camera, stealing, pointing at the evidence, and walking away. I saved the clip immediately. I made 3 copies. Then I called the delivery company and reported the theft. I gave them the tracking number and told them I had video evidence. They said they would flag it and issue a refund. I said I did not want a refund, I wanted the video on record. They said they would note it. Then I called the police. I filed a theft report. I gave them the video. The officer who took the report said it was clear evidence of theft, and if I wanted to press charges, I needed to bring the video to the station and file a formal complaint. I said I would. He gave me another case number. I added it to my folder. Then I called my neighbor, the older man. I told him what I had. He said he would testify if I needed him. I said I would. I asked if he knew anyone else who might have evidence. He said the management office customer I saw last week had been complaining about Angela, said she was unhinged. I asked for his number. He gave it to me. I called the customer. His name was Derek. He said he used to do maintenance for the HOA, but Angela fired him after he questioned an invoice. He said the invoice was for landscaping that was never done. He said he had a copy of the invoice packet with sections covered to hide the vendor name. He said he kept it because he thought it was fraud. I asked if he would share it. He said yes. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a vendor invoice packet with large black rectangles taped over sections. The visible parts showed charges for landscaping, snow removal, and legal fees. The dates matched the charges on my account ledger. I took photos of every page. Derek said Angela had threatened to sue him if he shared the documents. I said I would not use his name unless he agreed. He said he agreed. I added his statement to my folder. That night, I put together a timeline. I printed every document, every screenshot, every statement, every case number. I organized it by date. I highlighted the pattern. Angela edited accounts immediately after complaints were filed. Angela authorized towing without notice. Angela denied records requests. Angela was on camera stealing packages. Angela fired vendors who questioned her invoices. The pattern was clear. I made 3 copies of the timeline. One for me, one for the police, one for the state HOA oversight board. The next morning, I went to the police station. I brought my folder and the video. I asked to speak to someone about filing formal charges. They directed me to a detective. I laid everything out. The detective watched the video twice. He said it was strong evidence of theft, but he needed to confirm the package was mine and had value. I showed him the delivery confirmation and the receipt. He said he would open an investigation. He said it would take time, but if the evidence held up, Angela could be charged with theft and potentially fraud if the HOA finances were involved. He took my folder and made copies. He said he would be in touch. I asked how long. He said weeks, maybe months. I said I did not have months. He said that was how it worked. I left. I needed something faster. I needed public exposure. I decided to go to the management office and demand a meeting with the property manager in person, with witnesses. I called ahead and said I was coming at 2 p.m. and I expected the property manager to be available. The receptionist said she could not guarantee availability. I said I would wait. I showed up at 2 with my folder and my phone recording audio in my jacket pocket. The receptionist said the property manager was not in. I said I would wait. She said it could be hours. I sat down. 20 minutes later, Angela walked in. She saw me and her face went red. She said I was harassing staff and she was calling security. I said I was waiting for the property manager and I had every right to be there. She said I was banned from the office. I said show me the written ban. She did not have one. She pulled out her portable thermal printer and started typing. I pulled out my phone and started filming. She said I could not record her. I said I was in a public business office and I could record anything I wanted. She printed a ban notice and tried to hand it to me. I did not take it. She set it on the counter. I filmed it. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. Another customer walked in, a management office customer, and saw what was happening. She said, "This is unhinged." Angela turned on her. She said this was none of her business. The customer said she worked for the HOA until last month, and Angela had pulled the same stunts on contractors. She said Angela was a nightmare, and everyone knew it. Angela said she was done with this and she was calling the tow company. She pulled out her phone and called. I kept filming. The tow dispatcher answered on speaker by accident. Angela said she needed a vehicle towed immediately from Canyon Trails, Unit 214, unpaid fines, authorization confirmed. The dispatcher said they needed documentation. Angela said she was vice president and her word was documentation. The dispatcher said that was not how it worked. They needed a signed authorization form and proof of notice. Angela said she would email it. The dispatcher said they would wait for the email before dispatching. Angela hung up. She looked at me. She said I was going to regret this. I said I already had her on camera stealing my package, and I had filed a police report. She went pale. The receptionist stared. The other customer pulled out her phone and started recording too. Angela tried to grab my phone. I stepped back. She lunged again. The receptionist stood up and said she was calling the property manager right now. Angela said do not bother, she was leaving. She walked out. The receptionist looked at me and said she was sorry. She said Angela had been out of control for months and no one knew how to stop her. I asked if she would be willing to make a statement. She said she could not, she would lose her job. I said I understood. The other customer said she would make a statement. Her name was Lisa. She said she had invoices showing Angela approving charges for work that was never done. She said she quit because she did not want to be part of it. I asked if she would share the invoices. She said yes. She emailed them to me right there in the lobby. I added them to my folder. I went home and compiled everything. The doorbell video, the police case numbers, the witness statements, the vendor invoices, the timeline, the activity log screenshots. I put it all in a binder with tabs. I labeled each section: theft evidence, harassment evidence, fraud evidence, witness statements, case numbers. I made 3 copies, one for the police detective, one for the state HOA oversight board, one for the property manager with a formal demand for action. I sent the property manager copy via certified mail with a cover letter. The letter said I was requesting an immediate investigation into Angela Mercer for theft, fraud, harassment, and abuse of authority. I said I had provided evidence to law enforcement, and I expected the HOA to take action within 10 business days, or I would file a civil suit. I kept a copy of the letter for my records. 3 days later, the property manager called me. She said she had received my binder and she was alarmed by the contents. She said she had forwarded it to the HOA's attorney, and they were conducting an internal review. She said Angela had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. I asked what that meant. She said Angela was not allowed to access HOA systems, contact residents, or issue any enforcement actions. I asked if my access fob would be restored. She said it already was. I asked if the fines would be refunded. She said that was part of the review. I asked how long the review would take. She said 2 weeks. I said I would hold her to that. She said she understood. 2 days later, the detective called me. He said they had interviewed Angela, and she denied taking the package. He said the video was clear, but her attorney was claiming it was not her in the footage. I said it was obviously her. You could see her face and her trench coat and her ponytail. He said the attorney was arguing the angle was inconclusive. I said I had a witness who saw her on my porch that day. He said witness testimony would help. I gave him my neighbor's contact information. He said he would follow up. He also said they were looking into the vendor invoices and the account edits. He said if they found evidence of embezzlement, the case would expand. I asked if Angela would be arrested. He said it depended on what they found. I said keep me updated. He said he would. 1 week later, I got a call from the property manager. She said the internal review was complete. She said Angela had been removed from the board effective immediately. She said the HOA was refunding all disputed charges on my account and issuing a formal apology. She said they were also implementing new oversight procedures to prevent future abuse. I asked what happened to Angela. She said Angela had resigned and signed a separation agreement. I asked if the agreement included any accountability. She said she could not discuss the details, but Angela was banned from accessing HOA storage areas and barred from holding any HOA leadership position in the future. I asked if that was it. She said the HOA was also cooperating with the police investigation, and if criminal charges were filed, they would not interfere. I said that was not enough. She said it was all they could do without a court order. I said I would take it. The property manager also said the HOA was putting a hold on all further fees pending a full audit of accounts Angela had managed. She said residents who believed they were overcharged could file for refunds. I asked how many people filed. She said 43 so far. I said good. She said the board was also being restructured, and new elections would be held in 60 days. I said I might run. She laughed. I did not. The detective called me 2 days later. He said they had enough evidence to charge Angela with theft and fraud. He said the vendor invoices and the account edits showed a pattern of embezzlement, and the doorbell video was the final piece. He said the DA was filing charges and Angela would be arraigned within the week. I asked if I would have to testify. He said probably, but the video was strong enough that it might not go to trial. He said Angela's attorney was already talking about a plea deal. I asked what kind of deal. He said restitution, probation, and a permanent ban from HOA leadership. I said that sounded fair. He said it was better than most HOA fraud cases got. I thanked him. 3 weeks later, Angela pled guilty. The plea deal included full restitution to all affected residents, 3 years of probation, and a ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. She also had to pay a $5,000 fine and perform 200 hours of community service. The court ordered her to stay away from canyon trails and prohibited her from contacting any residents. I got a check in the mail for every disputed charge, plus interest. It was not much, but it felt like a victory. The funny thing was, Angela tried one last move. 2 days after the plea, she showed up at the management office and demanded access to retrieve personal files from the HOA storage closet. The property manager said no. She was banned. Angela said the ban was illegal and she was calling her attorney. The property manager said go ahead. She would call the police. Angela tried to push past the receptionist. The receptionist filmed the whole thing. The video went viral in the neighborhood Facebook group. Angela was escorted out by security and cited for trespassing. She tried to confiscate the receptionist's phone to delete the video. The receptionist held it up, and the whole lobby saw. It was instant. The property manager filed a restraining order the next day. Angela never came back. The HOA held elections 6 weeks later. I did not run, but I voted for 3 people I trusted. They won. The new board launched a full audit and found another $12,000 in missing funds Angela had siphoned through fake vendor invoices. The board filed a civil suit to recover it. Angela settled. She paid back every cent and signed an agreement never to contest the findings. The board also implemented mandatory quarterly audits and a new transparency policy requiring all vendor contracts and account edits to be posted on the resident portal within 48 hours. I checked the portal every week. It worked. I still live at Canyon Trails. My access fob works. My account is clean. The new board actually responds to emails. The neighborhood feels different now. People talk more. They ask questions. They do not just assume the board knows best. I still carry my evidence binder sometimes, just in case. But I have not needed it. A few neighbors thank me when they see me at the mailbox cluster. One of them said I should write a book. I said no one would believe it. He said that is why I should write it. I laughed. But he was right. It was absurd. It was infuriating. It was real. And in the end, I won because I had proof. I stayed calm. And I did not back down when Angela tried to bury me in paperwork and threats. The system worked eventually, but only because I forced it to. If I had given up after the first denial, or the second, or the 10th, Angela would still be there, still stealing, still framing people, still slamming that red stamp like it was a verdict. But I did not give up. I kept records. I stayed lawful. I demanded accountability. And when Angela finally got caught on speaker admitting she pressured the tow vendor without proper authorization, and everyone in that office heard it, that was the moment it all broke open. The HOA refunded my charges and put a hold on further fees pending review. Angela was banned from access to HOA storage areas, and I filed a demand for preservation of records that froze her delete tricks for good. She could not hide anymore. The evidence was everywhere, and she had no moves left. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you listening.